A new poll from Fox News has emerged suggesting that he is dramatically improving. In fact, he sees general improvement after every indictment. It's not absolute, but he does see his polling going up. New polls from Interactive Polls on Twitter shows that he is currently beating Joe Biden in the general, but there's a whole bunch of different polls we'll have to break down. The data coming out from this latest poll is actually fairly interesting because it shows support among black voters. In 2020, a Fox News voter analysis had Donald Trump at 8%. Now, that's a hard analysis, meaning they actually looked at support and said, that's what happened. Now they're doing a poll. Doesn't mean it's completely accurate because it's just a poll and who knows what'll happen. But according to this 2023 poll, Donald Trump is currently enjoying 20% support among black voters. And Joe Biden, who saw 91% support in 2020, now has only 61% in these polls. I see a bunch of videos popping up of people asking black Americans if they're going to be supporting Trump. And it tends to be a little bit of a mixed bag where people are like, no way, Trump's racist. But we are seeing more and more of these videos where you've got guys being like, I'm going to be honest. I'm voting for Trump. Don't F with my dog. There's that famous video where the one guy's like pointing the gun at the camera and he's like, don't F with Trump. This is going to be interesting. The Wall Street Journal wrote an article several years ago that said, if at any point the Democrats lose 20% of the black vote, they cannot win an election. That's it. It's over. And with Donald Trump gaining this support, it seems as of right now, and we don't know exactly what's going to happen, and a lot can change in a year and a few months. Donald Trump can't lose. That's assuming this one poll is correct, but there are many other polls that are coming out showing that Trump's ahead of Biden. So let me just point out, as we're looking at all of this, there's a lot of people on the right, neocons and never Trumpers, saying Trump can't possibly win a general election, which makes literally no sense at all. I'm not saying Trump is going to win. I'm not saying it's a guarantee he wins. These polls, just one poll, 1,000 people, scientifically extrapolated. They say, we think this may be correct. Maybe they're wrong, but it's a good showing for Trump. Now, these people are saying Trump can't win. Trump lost 2020 by 42,000 votes. Trump won 2016 by like 70 to 80,000 votes. These are narrow margins. It's based on the Electoral College, not the popular vote. If you take a look at the popular vote count, you might think, well, Trump's not going to be able to beat Joe Biden again. But they don't have the lockdowns. They may be trying for the lockdowns. We're hearing more and more about mandates, etc. But I think the real issue is Democrats know they are in serious trouble. So why are they indicting Trump over and over and over again? Because they're losing and they know it. Not only does this poll show that Donald Trump is dramatically improving among the black population, enough so that the Republicans might actually gain enough support from the black, Latino, and Asian population to win, making it impossible for Democrats to win. You've got Cornel West, considered a spoiler for Democrats, garnering around 4% of the vote, which knocks Biden out of the running. And then you have this story, which really makes you wonder. From Forbes, Trump co-defendant Harrison Floyd denied bond. Why he's still in jail. Do you know who Harrison Floyd is? Harrison Floyd is the director of Black Voices for Trump. It's really amazing. He's the only one who was remanded to custody. The only one they truly fear and don't want out on the campaign trail. And they hope they can brush this all under the rug. Man. I'm sorry. Look, I think the Republican Party, it's a bunch of uniparty, neocon, warmongers, et cetera, et cetera. There's a handful of them that I think are good, that I kind of like. They're more libertarian leaning or anti-establishment. For the most part, Republicans are just, you know what, it's the Washington Generals to the Democrats' Harlem Globetrotters. I love it when Democrats make that argument. Yeah, they have to act like they're weak when they're destroying everything where there's no accountability. We get it. This is what they're trying to do. They know that Trump is improving. They know that Joe Biden can't win without hard procedural support, a lockdown perhaps, universal mail-in voting. And I don't even know if Biden can win with those things because the economy is not that great. It's easy when Donald Trump is in office, you got a bad economy, or you got COVID lockdowns because they can blame it all on him. But now it's Joe Biden's fault. Trump's not even in office. That's an advantage. They're going after him with the indictments. And they're trying to remove his name from the ballot. We have a court filing already, I think it's out of Florida, where they're saying Trump's an insurrectionist. It has begun. But They can't just lock him up. Dan Bongino said that Trump should have not posted bond and then called their bluff. I agree. Call their bluff. Say, I'm not going to post. Let's roll, baby. I'll go and sit in jail. And Dan Bongino said, let's make our first presidential, our political prisoner a president for the first time. But they let him out and they let everyone else out because the indictments are to do, firstly, one thing, drain the resources of the Trump sphere of influence. Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, the Republicans in Georgia who supported Trump, Trump himself, Trump's other legal representatives, members of his administration, Mark Meadows, John Eastman, Jeffrey Clark, drain their resources. Georgia has effectively unlimited resources as far as anyone's concerned. There are limits for sure. But with the federal government, effectively unlimited resources being levied against the Trump sphere of influence, forcing them to pay hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars to defend themselves. But there is one man that they truly fear, and that is Harrison Floyd. Yo, I watched this video, and it should make your blood boil. This polite, well-mannered man who voluntarily surrendered, same as anybody else, denied bond. And the judge with a smile on her face. No, you can't leave. You're here for good. Maybe ask another judge. It's not up to me. Sorry. The one guy. Why? Because he runs Black Voices for Trump. Because they know if they start losing the black vote, Trump can't lose. And the polls show it. This is political interference and manipulation to the worst degree we have ever seen in this country. And it's getting crazy. But you know what? Let them play their dirty games because we're winning across the board. The creepy facade they've tried to maintain over culture is breaking down their own voter base. Good. I love it. Let you reap what you sow. Take a look at this from the Wall Street Journal, where Democrats' grip on minority voters could slip in midterm elections from September 30th, 2022. This is 2022. There's a lot of questions about why the Republicans did not do better. And I think people underestimate how well Trump actually did. They heard this narrative that said Trump didn't do well enough. Okay, let me tell you. They said Trump's predictions, he didn't do so well. The Republicans were supposed to have a tsunami and they barely took control of the House. Yeah, that's probably universal mail-in voting and other procedural changes that the Democrats have maintained power over Republicans. Republicans don't understand the power of ballot chasing. It's not about convincing people to vote for you. This video right now, preaching to the choir. Perhaps you could share it, and perhaps you can say, here are some reasons to vote against Democrats. Not that I like the Republican Party, to be completely honest, but we got to get more anti-establishment figures and libertarian types to run. But I'll take it over what the Democrats are doing. War, the destruction of our country. I mean, look at what's going on in San Francisco. There's no question. No question. Maybe you can convince people, but I don't think convincing people is really what matters for the Democrats. They know they can put on the TV. People are going to watch CNN and MSNBC. They're going to hear garbled nonsense from people like Chris Christie, and they're going to be like, I'm going to vote for him. Yeah, Chris Christie, great. Excellent performance in the lesser-known GOP debates. What the Democrats know is that ballot harvesting is the true way you go about this. Because there's some dude sitting in his basement playing video games in a big city or in a suburb, and they're going to knock on the door every single day, and the dude's going to be like, can I help you? And I'm like, did you vote yet? And it's like, dude, I don't care, leave. Well, we'll be back tomorrow. And it'll be another person that'll be like, I'm sorry for bothering you. We're just, we're doing out the vote. You have your mail-in ballot, right? And they'll be like, yeah, just fill it out right now. I'll take it from you. And then, there you go. And that's why you end up with all of these ballots that just Biden, nothing down ballot. Now, there are questions about what happened in 2020. I can totally respect that. Ballots reportedly with no creases. They weren't even mailed in. Where did those come from? I could totally understand that. But if Trump only lost by 42,000 votes, a lot of that doesn't matter. Let's operate under the assumption y'all are correct. They fraudulently mass-produced ballots and double counted them. We know there were some double counting. They caught it. Those were removed, according to a bunch of sources. There were no audits to look for other double counting, so people assume there's more, not proving there are more. But let's operate under the assumption. Let's just say outright, you're correct. Doesn't matter. You know why? Because as soon as the Republicans start ballot chasing, they're going to close that gap between 42,000 and zero. And Donald Trump then wins. That's it. Let them do whatever they want. If Scott Pressler ramps up his efforts, if the GOP embraces what he's doing with voter registration, it's over. And if we look at these trends with minorities slipping away, that's it. That's it. Trump can't lose. From the Wall. So that story from September 30th, 2022. We then had this story from November 7th, 2022. GOP gaining support among Black and Latino voters, Wall Street Journal poll finds. It's not just a poll from 1 year later that Fox News finds Trump gaining support among Black voters. A year ago, they found 17% said they would pick a Republican candidate over a Democrat for Congress. That is apocalyptic news. And this is why I think they are locking up Harrison Floyd. Maybe you never heard of the guy. I didn't. Not until they announced these indictments against Trump in his sphere of influence. They probably looked through these names and they said, we're going to drain the resources of his legal team, of anyone who can try and help him win legal challenges. Rudy Giuliani. 2024 comes along. They're going to be filing lawsuits, or they would have been, over election issues leading into 2024. Oh, you better believe there's going to be so many lawsuits in 2024 before the election. And the courts are going to try and pull this standing BS. But I think more and more lawyers are getting prepared for what that actually is and what it means. And thus, they're going to cite the precedent of 2020. So when they say, here's why we're filing suit, and the court then says, well, you have no standing until after the election. They'll say, wrong. The judge ordered and ruled we had to file beforehand. Boom, there it is. They'll still play dirty games. Don't get me wrong. They'll still play dirty games. But you're going to see a ton of lawsuits being filed. What happens? The arrest and prosecution of these lawyers means their money is going to be spent on other things. It's a trick. It is evil. These people are just, it's crazy to me. It's shocking. When I see like the Krasensteins I view as, today, I view them more abjectly evil than I did before. Before I saw them as just like normie liberal dudes who are making arguments. And then they indicted Trump's lawyers for simply being his lawyers. And then the Krasensteins, for those not familiar, these are prominent liberal personalities on X, formerly known as Twitter. We've had them on the show. And I thought for the most part, they were just ignorant of many of the issues. And so they were your typical liberal guy. Anyone who looks at the indictment of, say, Jenna Ellis or Jeffrey Clark or Mark Meadows, but I say Jenna Ellis outright is the most egregious. Anyone who defends the criminal charges against her, evil. Sorry, there's no question in my mind anymore. Jenna Ellis is charged in the case against Trump on counts 1 and 2, RICO and solicitation of a public officer to violate their oath of office. That's it. Literally because she was Trump's lawyer. Protected legal counsel. Trump says, I want to challenge these things. Says, okay, I'll file the paperwork. We got her, they said. I'm like, what? She's a lawyer filing legal paperwork. And then let's advance there and say Jeffrey Clark is even more egregious. He was the acting assistant attorney general for the U.S. government. And he was asked by Trump in his position as a federal officer, not I shouldn't say officer, but a federal representative, saying, yeah, here's how you would file these things. Here's how I think it works. Boom, they say RICO. Anyone who defends that, they are lying to you. It's no longer about being stupid. Everyone knows that legal counsel is protected. Then we heard something interesting. We had Fresh and Fit on the podcast last night. And apparently, and I'll have to look more into this, but they were saying there are notes from Trump's lawyers in the indictment against him at the federal level. That's protected communications. That's constitutionally protected legal counsel. They don't care. They're playing dirty. And the reason is they know they can't win. That's why I think they're locking up Harrison Floyd. Oh, dude, it was so brutal. To hear this poor guy say, Your Honor, I voluntarily surrendered. I'm here. I don't understand for what reason I'm being denied bond. And she's just smiling, saying, well, too bad. Off to jail with you. It's like, wow. The only guy they remanded was the black guy? Yep. Because they're racist, they are evil, and they are fascists. Now, I know it sounds a little bit cliche, and we always get this thing where it's like, oh, don't call the Democrats fascists. There's like a meme where it's like, Democrats are the real racists. Listen, Democrats have always been racist. There's no difference now. They try with critical race theory, they push segregation. But let's be real. The only guy they remand is the black dude. That's their line. They should be saying that about Republicans, but here it is. Democrats are the ones doing it. The guy who runs Black Voices for Trump, the only guy they remand? Sure. Like I believe them. Things are getting crazy. And I think they realize Trump's boost in the polls, the indictments, Trump's playing them. Dan Bongino made that point about Trump not surrendering. I agreed. But maybe we don't see what Trump sees. And I can respect that. We're not in that sphere. We are not sitting there with Trump's PR team and his legal team. And maybe Trump's right. Maybe he's right. I think he sat down with his lawyers and they said, listen, it'll cost you more money. It's going to drain your resource, make it harder for the campaign. The best move now is surrender peacefully, get the mugshot, fundraise off of it, use what they're doing to actually boost you, counter it. And I think maybe that's Trump's strategy. Instead of resisting and fighting, treat it like a Chinese finger trap. Move in, raise $7 million off that photo, which he did. People are buying these shirts. We made the Trump revenge poster using his mugshot. It is free for anyone. We made it, but we relinquish all ownership rights. Anyone can use it. Trump's making money. He's getting a boost in the polls. They try, but it's not working. Trump making $7 million bumps him up. They're trying to drag his resources. It's bumping him up. Here we go. Let's roll. Colin Rugg says a challenge has been filed in federal court to have Trump removed from the 2024 race under the 14th Amendment. Mark my words, they'll claim they're doing this to protect democracy. Attorney Lawrence Kaplan filed a challenge claiming Trump cannot legally be in the 2024 ballot because he engaged in an insurrection. The bottom line here is a quote, is that President Trump both engaged in an insurrection and also gave aid and comfort to other individuals who were engaging in such actions within the clear meaning of those terms as defined in Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Kaplan said in his filing, assuming that the public record to date is accurate and we have no evidence to the contrary, Trump is no longer eligible to seek office of the President of the United States or of any other state of the Union. Tim Pool is trending right there on Twitter. You can see it. And as always, some weird reason why I'm trending. It was really funny. Apparently, the other day I was trending. It said Tim Pool is trending in Tim Pool. I trend so often. I have my own category on Twitter/X. I have my own category of Tim Pool because the real reason why that is because the reason there's a Tim Pool category, just as an aside, is because of Timcast IRL. Someone will say something like, so-and-so just said this on Tim Pool's show, which creates this umbrella of Tim Pool's show and then all of the guests we have and the things they say and the clips that go viral. So it creates a category of it. And then I'm trending it. It's kind of silly. But one of the reasons that I talk about civil war. Look, man, I don't know what's going to happen. I talk about civil war and I'm not the only one. Tucker Carlson asked Trump about it. And Trump said, I've never seen passion and hatred so hot, but I just don't know. And I think it's fair. Of course, I cite Stephen Marsh quite a bit, though I disagree with him on a lot of political issues and my perspective on politics. He says he is a multicultural democracy guy. I'm a constitutional republic kind of guy. But I recommend his book, The Next Civil War. And he says we're in civil strife already. This is effectively the bleeding Kansas phase, which happened just before the Civil War. I can't tell you what will happen, but my friends, when they are filing to have Trump's name removed from the ballot, there's no election. If Trump's name is removed from even a single state, there's no election. That's it. There's no election. And it's an interesting way to phrase it. Roseanne was sitting here with Michael Malice, and she said that there wasn't going to be an election. And Michael Malice bet her there would be. So we're going to have we're preparing a show in Austin, maybe for January. Or no, I think that one is about her saying there's going to be military tribunals. Yeah, that's not happening. But she said there wouldn't be an election, so that'll be a really interesting follow-up. But I asked to clarify, and I said, what do you mean by that? There's not going to be an election. Because most people assume what that means is, come November, Joe Biden comes out and says, due to the ongoing war in Ukraine and the political conflict happening in the United States, the elections are postponed. Gavel. Boom. Oh, no, there's no elections. Does it really mean that? Maybe that's what she meant. But I said, what if Trump is removed from the ballot? Then is there an election? No, of course not. Trump is the clear frontrunner. We see it in all the polls. We know Trump is winning. This is the latest from IA polls. Emerson, an A- poll. Trump, 46% to Biden's 44%. Trump is up by 2 points when these two candidates are placed head to head. But get this, when Trump is placed against Cornel West, Biden does even worse. With Cornel West on the ticket, Trump is up 5 points in the general polling. He's at 50% in the GOP. There's no point in DeSantis or anybody else even running. This is from August 25th, 26th, with 1,000 registered voters. It's a decent sample size, not the biggest. It's decent. Same as the African-American support for Trump. 1,000 is about decent. It's not perfect. Polls tend to be wrong. It gets worse for Democrats. We know that the polls have been skewing pro-Democrat by up to 7 points consistently. Why? They're oversampled. The one reason may be people don't answer phone calls anymore, and that Donald Trump has woken up a voter base that typically does not vote. That was in 2016. Times have changed, and it's hard to track these days. But assuming the trends are correct and that polling is skewed in favor of Democrats quite a bit, Trump's going to win. Now, perhaps to overcompensate for this, we saw tremendous polling for Republicans in 2020 and 2022, and the Democrats did better than anyone realized. The economic trends and polling in 2020 was heavily favorable to Republicans, but not so much to Trump. And then, of course, Joe Biden ended up eking out that win by 42,000 votes in 3 states. They try to play this game. In 2016, they said Trump won in a landslide because of the Electoral College. No, he didn't. It was like 70,000 votes. He barely won. And they were pissed off. Hillary Clinton should have campaigned in Wisconsin and Michigan more so than she did. She didn't. She ignored it. They thought they couldn't lose. Trump converted these states. And now Florida apparently is no longer a swing state. It's now deep red. That's why they want to remove Trump's name from the ballot. Good luck with that in Florida. But if they do, Trump can't win. If Trump's name is removed from the ballot, he cannot win. Period. No matter how many people support him. He loses a state like Florida, it's done. So what I think we'll see is Georgia, maybe Ohio, and Florida. Florida being so deep red, I really doubt it'll happen. A lot of people migrated away from their awful blue states into Florida. But Georgia, there's another reason why they're going after Trump in Florida. It's only a matter of time before they file their lawsuit, a civil suit, not a criminal complaint, to have Trump removed from the ballot, arguing that even the indictment is enough to argue he's an insurrectionist. And it's funny because we had this conversation on Timcast IRL. And we had Eric Hunley say, yeah, but he wasn't convicted. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. A civil argument is not a criminal court case. You can sue a ham sandwich. You can file whatever you want. They will file. They are going to bombard the system with these lawsuits. And you know what? Why wouldn't a judge just agree? But if Trump is removed from even a single state, we're effectively North Korea. Because then it is a foregone conclusion. Democrats can't lose if their opponents can't run. That's it. So what do you think this is? Right now, there are 2 factions. Within these 2 parent factions in the culture war, there are numerous other factions. A cold cultural civil war. Call it whatever you want. What happens when Trump's name is removed from the ballot? There's a video going viral we'll talk about probably later, where a bunch of eco-activists are blocking, they barricade the road. I think it's to Burning Man. That's what the video said. And the police ram the barricade. Now, protesters are claiming that the cops ran people over. They didn't. But when the cop rams the trailer that they're using as a blockade, it does cause it to spin, hitting some of the activists who are linking arms and have chain trying to block the road, and it knocks them over. They seem to be mostly fine. The cop then jumps out with what appears to be a taser screaming on the ground. And then you have this woman screaming, oh, we're nonviolent. Oh, I love it so much. The cops finally dealing with these psychopaths. But you can't stop it. The ego activists, mostly nonsense, right? So what? They're blocking the road. Any one of the people who are in their cars could get up and eventually just move these people out of the way. And the cops ram the trailer because they're just not having it. But let's talk about something different. These far left extremists have already been violent in the Pacific Northwest. They've already marched around with rifles. Do we get to the point where a state highway or interstate, 2-lane interstate, you get in the middle of nowhere, the interstates can get a little bit small, right? Two lanes with a divider, of course, maybe 4 lanes. What happens if 5 guys of any political persuasion and guns block the road then? Then what? Traffic backs up for miles, hundreds of miles. supplies are not being delivered. What happens if they remove Trump's name from the ballot, and then when it comes to the general election, people on the right are just like, in various cities saying there's no election. It doesn't matter. I'm telling you, if Trump's name is removed from the ballot, they may as well not cover the election results at all. People won't even turn the TV on. I'm not saying everybody. This is the mistake people make. They assume this means that all the red states will immediately start marching down the street, with rifles. No, it means that you're going to have pockets of small towns of people being like, we don't have elections anymore. And then they're going, you might see exactly what we're seeing already with these eco-activists on the other side, already with Antifa on the other side. Antifa shooting people in Provo, Utah. Far-left extremists running up to a car and shooting the driver for no reason. Civil strife. People are like, there's no civil war. Oh, man. I just wish that so many of these people had just gotten to experience any bit of the civil strife happening in any of these other countries. Because then you'd be like, I can't believe it. I'll tell you what I saw in Egypt. And I'm not an expert on Egypt. I'm looking down from the Hilton on the streets in front of it. And groups of people start coming up these ramps like a highway or something. It's been a long time. And they are shooting at each other with makeshift shotgun pistols. Whatever you want to call it. They had these really interesting, they made a handgun that took shotgun shells, I think 12 gauge. And they were shooting each other. In fact, one of the guys from Vice got shot in the back with bird shot. Crazy. Someone died. I remember watching them carry away what I can only assume was a dead body that got shot. And then the revolution happened. APCs going through the streets. The military said the country is on the verge of collapse and intervened. The military then started gunning down members of the Muslim Brotherhood who protested the removal of their duly elected president. Not a civil war, a revolution, a second revolution. So maybe what's happening here doesn't result in that. But I don't know what to tell you. Look at what's going on around you. I cannot predict the future. I can only predict variables. The way I see it, I want you to imagine a loom or something like that. I watched a video of a cable being threaded. And what I see in front of me is behind us, imagine a braid, a thick rope knotted together, braided together. And in front of us is all the different strands. And each of those strands is a possibility, and they are being woven together. Each one of them could be the path we take. We don't know for sure, just percentages. So when it comes to looking a year and a half down the road, it's impossible to predict with all these different pathways that emerge from different pathways. Just think of like a fractal pattern or a lightning bolt. But before us, the probabilities start to become clearer and clearer as we choose which road we go down. And each road we go down leads to a new branch of possibilities. I mean, it's a simple analogy, right? So I can't tell you which of the 10,000 different paths we're going to end up on. I can tell you there are only a few, 100 right in front of us. For example, one thing I've talked about, the Democrats' best strategy for winning is Joe Biden suffers a medical issue on stage while rallying in California. Joe Biden says, I'm going to go to California. We're going to do a rally and we're going to talk about immigration, blah, blah, blah. Presidential election. Gavin Newsom as a surrogate. Gavin Newsom opens and says, everybody, we're going to support Joe Biden. We're going to help him win, blah, blah, blah. Bidenomics is working. Biden comes out. He's giving a speech. Then all of a sudden he starts to put his hand on his head, grips his chest, falls over. Gavin Newsom runs full speed. Secret Service runs out. Gavin Newsom rips off his jacket, starts yelling Secret Service. They call it in. He's given CPR to Joe Biden, saves his life. Is an extreme scenario that seems extremely unlikely. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm saying, that gets Kamala Harris out of the way. That gets Joe Biden out of the way. Joe Biden then says Gavin Newsom's a hero. He gives a press tour. I'm not saying it'll happen. I'm saying that's their best case scenario. Who knows what could happen? There's a lot we can imagine. I'm just saying we are in unprecedented times. And this idea, that it's funny when people are just like, civil war. Okay. I'm not saying I know for sure. Call it a cold civil war because everyone else is. And that maybe I think cold civil war is probably a stupid way to describe it because civil strife is the better way to put it. It's the academic way to put it. And it's what Bleeding Kansas basically was. People are being killed over politics. Aaron Danielson shot twice in the chest by a communist. So what ends up happening as we move forward? Ha ha ha, civil war. Small factions break off, start fighting. The government loses confidence. We've already had autonomous zones emerge. If these trends continue, where do we go? I'll tell you what I fear. I was thinking about something over the weekend. The autonomous zones. Occupations. Occupy Wall Street was 12 years ago. What happens when far left extremists set up another Chaz, a larger one? But you know what they decide? They're going to use private property. What happens when a group of far leftists decide we're going to use this derelict property that is private, and it becomes an issue of a civil action against the private owner? The private owner then contacts the police and says, this lot belongs to me. I would like the police to remove these extremists. The police then say, we have no resources for removing these far left extremists. The owner then says, then I will hire private security. The far left extremists occupying private land results in people on the right saying, holy crap, the far left is now setting up larger and larger occupations to seize land. The police are incapable and unwilling to intervene. Many cops are resigning. Many cops are actually just saying, I don't have anything to do with this. This is between you and them. The cops will just say, civil. What happens when the far left pulls a Harper's Ferry? They occupy a privately run business and say it's now an occupation zone. It was one thing when they set up a corridor around city streets with rifles, and they even shot and killed people. That happened. It's remarkable. People are like, oh, civil war can't happen. Bro, they occupied a section of a city and shot and killed people. And they're like, nah, that'll all go away. Sure, I guess. I don't see the off-ramp. What happens when they do it on private land and the cops don't intervene? Well, let's entertain a few scenarios. They're not particularly likely. There's many variables before us. Who knows what it'll be? The property owner then hires private security. Private security then goes and tries to stop the occupation. The occupants, armed with rifles, threaten them and say, you have no authority here. You're not the police. You're just dudes with guns. Right-wing individuals then say, we got to put a stop to these far leftists, and you get an actual shootout. When the far left occupied their own cities, no conservative groups went and cared. But what happens when it spreads to suburbs or more rural areas? That has me worried. I don't know for sure. What I can tell you is they're scared and they're desperate. Trump is going to win. That's why they're going after legal attack. It's lawfare. They know they can't win the general. Tell these never Trumpers. Look, if it were hopeless, they would not be screeching in desperation and crying bloody murder. They would not be trying to arrest. They would not be indicting. They would not be trying to get his name off the ballot. They're scared, especially with rich men north of Richmond, Bud Light, Target, Sound of Freedom. They're losing the culture war. And so the only thing they have left is brute force. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.